Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Andrew Musgrove here. Do hit thumbs up and hit subscribe. It's just moments after Liverpool beat Newcastle 3-2 up at St James's Park. I'm currently in the multi-story waiting for the traffic to die down so I can get home. It is a late one this evening, so do make sure you hit thumbs up and hit subscribe to the channel. My initial reaction to tonight's game is that Newcastle United have a squad full of players who are committed and understand what it means to play for this football club, which is even more ironic given the Alexander Isak situation and the way he has behaved. What we saw this evening, the conditions were obviously against them with Anthony Gordon being sent off, but you had players who were giving their all for the shirt, were really playing with their heart and leaving nothing behind. And I think Newcastle United leave the pitch there, having lost 3-2, feeling disappointed not to come away with at least a point, where Liverpool, I think, will feel very, very fortunate. They were shocking throughout tonight, really. Newcastle United were the better side in the first half, and I think if you have a striker of any quality who plays tonight, he finishes 2-3 goals in that first half, and Newcastle go in the interval with space between themselves and Liverpool. As it was, Newcastle wasted a few chances. Gordon probably had the best one, which headed over. If you have Stan Larson on the end of that cross, then that goes in the back of the net, in my opinion. That is the difference. But no fault in Anthony Gordon's effort prior to getting sent off. He was arguably the best player on the pitch until that moment where it is a reckless challenge. He dives in. It's frustrating because he's gone 40 yards to try and win the ball and is just late to it. His foot's not really that high from the replays I've seen. I think it's more the momentum that takes him into the back leg of Van Dijk, but it is reckless, and obviously as soon as it goes to VAR, then job's done and he is off the pitch. And at that point you think, how are Newcastle United going to get through the next 45? Of course, the early second goal that they conceded wasn't ideal, and then you're thinking, is this just going to be a cricket score? Is this just going to be damage and limitation? But I tell you what, something stirred within them, led by Bruno Guimaraes. What a performance from that man tonight. Man of the match. And I actually think his best performance in black and white. He was absolutely superb. Although I'd have to say, I do think he has Alisson to thank for him not getting sent off, because there was a moment when the Brazilian keeper comes out and tells him to calm down, his fellow countryman, of course, because Bruno was all over the place. He was very passionate, but that passion was leading to him being on the chances of getting a second yellow card, which would have been absolutely devastating. I mean, aside from Anthony Gordon's dismissal, you have injury concerns to Sandro Tonali, who was running around holding his arm into his chest after being forced to the ground by Ekitike. It was a needless shove to the floor. And then you've got Joe Linton, who was involved in a challenge, and he'd been a tank all evening. Again, someone with just unlimited passion, running around, really intimidating the opposition. But he went down on a challenge and was absolutely just decimated. He was in tears as he left the pitch. Hopefully that's not too serious, but judging by his reaction, whether that's just in the moment, it looked like a nasty injury. I haven't seen any updates from Eddie Howe at the time of recording. We will be hosting another podcast tomorrow, myself and Mark Carruthers, the Monday show on a Tuesday, so a few more updates in that episode. But look, Newcastle United, with the commitment and the effort that they put in tonight against arguably the best side in the Premier League, they'll be absolutely fine if they can get a striker in, and either a second one, or if they can reintegrate Alexander Isak into that squad and get another striker on top of that as well. That's what has to happen, in my opinion. At least one striker, and then it depends on Alexander Isak. Of course, the owner and chairman is here. Jimmy Rubin was here as well. Reports say that there has been some talks with Alexander Isak this afternoon. They mean business in one way or the other. This is going to get resolved, I think, over the next 24, 48 hours, because they're not here to mess around. They, like I say, mean business, and they don't want this to drag out, because if it drags out, you know, who's it benefiting? You know, Newcastle United still have a once-away player, and then they're forced to reintegrate a player who has kicked up such a fuss that it has derailed their summer and start to the Premier League campaign. I mean, really, we should be sitting here, I think, with Newcastle on 6 points, and instead it's Newcastle United on 1, simply because the chances they've created, they've not put in the back of the net. And look, that's maybe giving the likes of Barnes and Gordon and Alanga a free pass, because if you're in those positions, you're professional footballers, you should put them in the back of the net. But there is a difference from being a left winger forced to play up front and an out-and-out striker And that is the difference that Newcastle United at the moment just don't have. So it needs to get resolved, hopefully in time for the next game, which is Leeds, isn't it, on Saturday tea time. Hopefully we will have either, well, we're not going to have Isak back in the starting 11, are we? But we hopefully will have a striker on board who can just help Newcastle put the ball in the back of the net. And it is a 5:30 kick-off at Ellen Road, which will be an unbelievable atmosphere. And you're talking about atmospheres. I mean, tonight was spot on. The crowd were behind the team from the word go. Obviously, you had the war flags display, which hit the nail on the head about the unity, about messaging, no one achieving anything without anybody else. The crowd were fantastic, and St James's Park was at its very, very best. And when that second goal went in from Will Asula, always backed them, ladies and gents, and it was a goal that I totally dreamt Will Asula scoring, to be honest. It was not a clean finish. It was one of those where he's just managed to get something to it, then he's bundled himself over and, somersaulted to the floor, and it's rolled into the back of the net. If Asula was going to score, it was probably going to be like that, or with all due respect. But the place was just absolutely electric, and Liverpool couldn't handle it. They were not up for it. They weren't up for it from the word go, and that's what makes it all the more frustrating. That I think if Newcastle have 11 players, they win this game, even with Liverpool taking the lead. Liverpool were shocking, truth be told. And I said there they were the best side in the Premier League, and I think on paper what they achieved last season, the players they've got, they probably have the best squad in the Premier League, and many people tipped them to win the title. But tonight they looked awful, and I'm sitting here kind of cursing the fact that Anthony Gordon got himself sent off and Newcastle United couldn't take advantage. I mean, that Slobozai at right back, and Newcastle never really got at him. There was a couple of moments where they got at both Van Dijk and Kante, but not enough. And obviously when you go down to 10 men, and that becomes a little bit harder to do. But I think Newcastle United will certainly be kicking themselves, even if you don't take the Anthony Gordon sending off into consideration. The fact that they've had a point with a few more minutes to go, and then they've conceded a third, and there was nothing really they could have done at that point. The players who had played all game were absolutely out on their legs. They had no energy left whatsoever. They'd put in such a shift, and the space was just there at the back. Nothing Nick Pope, in my opinion, could do about any of the goals really. But that third one, it's a brilliant finish from the young lad Rio, and Liverpool come away with 3 points. But I think had they not, they would have been, well, look, if they'd come away with a point, I think they would have been grateful. I think they've been very fortunate to come away with all 3. But this is just Liverpool in the Premier League against Newcastle United. They seem to score winners when they don't deserve it, and they seem to also score late winners, if we remember all those years back during the entertainers era. But yeah, look, positives. Loads of positives to take from this. Okay, we still haven't got Newcastle with their first victory of the season, but I think all things considered, all the distractions off the pitch, then the red card, then the early second goal, to lose this game in that fashion 3-2, it's just annoying and frustrating, but you've got to applaud the players for the effort they put in, and that's what gives me hope about what's to come, because you get a striker into that side, a few more games under the belt, and I think Newcastle United will be there or thereabouts, battling for the top 4, and certainly the top 6. So I'm feeling happy about tonight. Of course, I would love to have won. If not win, I would love to have taken the point. But I am not coming home angry at the players. I'm not coming home disappointed at the players. I'm disappointed at the result. But the performance was absolutely superb. And I think it just defines everything about this club under Eddie Howe. It's the commitment to the cause. It's the commitment to the badge, and to the people, and to the supporters. And everyone was in unison today. The supporters and the players working together. They kind of pulled that Bruno header over the line. I just want to also have a word about Bruno Guimaraes. Just, like I said, arguably his best performance, I think. Really. I mean, look, I think I've already just mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it for a second time. I thought he was absolutely superb. And more of that from him. Because if he can lead like that for the rest of the season, Newcastle United will be absolutely fine. I thought the midfield 3 were brilliant up until the injuries. Jacob Ramsey. Yeah, it is Jacob Ramsey. Goodness me, you can tell it's a late night. Jacob Ramsey coming off the bench, and there were flashes. Obviously, it's a difficult game to get put into, but there were definitely flashes there of why Newcastle United anyhow like him. Lewis Miley as well. We saw the calm on the ball. Malik Thiaw came out, had a brief scare, But there was a turn that he managed to pull off, and again, did we see enough of him to make a judgment? No, that will come, but certainly positives tonight. I'm not thinking about the defeat at all. No, I think we just feel unlucky, to be fair. I think how I would sum it up, we come away feeling like we've been hard done by, and they go away, Liverpool, they head back down to Anfield feeling very fortunate. I think that's the best way to describe it. Newcastle United should have got something from this game. Refereeing decisions, the red card aside, maybe something to do with it. The man advantage obviously had something to do with it. But look, it's hard to really blame anyone. People will say Anthony Gordon, it was reckless. But look, he was, as I say, the best player, I think, in that first half. So don't hate on him too much. It was just a momentary lapse of concentration, which of course has cost Newcastle in the end. But he'll be back in a few weeks. You've got to remember that he's been playing in that centre-forward role. Not his choice, but he's here. He's committed. He's putting everything into it. So don't hate too much on the lad. Silly mistake, but he'll get over it and be back and fighting fit for Newcastle United after that suspension. But yeah, like I say, Newcastle United unlucky here at St James's Park. Should have come away with at least a point. Nothing that they did to lose this game. Liverpool very, very fortunate. Do hit subscribe, do hit thumbs up, and I'll see you very soon.